After we left the concert, Pete, Taya, Lorenzo, and myself walked the Truman Hot Boat, a club on the beach near the pier, where we met up with two more friends, Chris and Andrew, to grab some drinks to finish off our last night in Odessa.
Okay.
The British guy, first time trying the fuck.
Let's see. Dude.
We had a lot to drink.
Whoa!
That was like
I didn't get much footage because my camera was dead, and I spent more time connecting with everyone there. I wanted to spend the least amount of time possible pointing a camera in people's faces this night anyway. I wanted to experience it. I wanted to remember it.
Don't touch it, give me 1 minute.
Leaving America, coming here and making new friends and meeting old ones for the first time, all of it was completely out of my comfort zone, which is the whole purpose of this entire trip. It's what I wanted it to be about, getting out of my comfort zone. And never in a million years did I ever see myself here, where I am now, on this very night.
Oh yeah. So this is gonna be the flaming thing, man. Who's going first? You go first.
When I decided to make this trip, I told myself that I had to make this about overcoming fear. I would leave fear behind for good and never look back. That would be the end goal of this trip, to change my life.
Because I had this at, well, something similar at Unit. Go. Drink now. I don't know if she's gonna get the straws. Yep.
Take one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
When I say you drink, and you drink until it will be empty. You got it?
Yeah.
Ready?
All right, here we go. Here we go.
Almost. Drink. No, cheater. Do this one. Hey, come on. Go. And now.
I guess it's no.
For you. You got it. Don't cheat.
No cheat.
Don't cheat with that woman. Drink. Come on. And more.
So I had a lot to drink. And after spending hours at Truman running up a very surprisingly inexpensive bar tab, it's nearly 4 a.m. And somehow we ended up on the pier, where the tide had rose enough to completely cover the furthest point. For those of you who don't know, I am deathly afraid of the ocean and of large bodies of water. Primarily because I almost drowned when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So I do everything in my power to stay away from it. When we walked down to the pier, I'm not sure what possessed me to do it other than the 7 shots and 3 beers that I had. But I started walking further and further past the safe point. And then I stop and I realize just what I'm doing. And I'm like, wait, what the heck is going on? And I freeze. And they started asking me, Lawrence, where are you going? Like, we just came from over there. Why are you going back out there? And I was just like, I really have to do this on my own. So I went. I had to conquer this fear alone. I had to know I would never let it control me again. I had to know that I had it in myself to make it to what felt like the end of my past and the beginning of my future. The path ahead seemed endless, and the fear began to rise just as the tide did between my feet, challenging my footing, testing my courage. But I reminded myself, the distance is only an illusion. One more foot ahead of me. This fear is only a delusion. I can be my own worst enemy at times, doubting my own strength and my potential, allowing the failures of yesterday to keep me from today's victories. I realize that I've lived most of my life afraid, but I just can't do that anymore. I have to be more. I have to do more. I have to want more, because I am more. I am more than my past. I am more than my pain. I am more than my shortcomings. I am more than my imperfections. I am more than my doubt. I am more than my broken relationships. I'm more than any of that. We let ourselves be slaves to our past all too often when we allow it to dictate how we operate in the present or to influence the outcome of our future. We treat it as a handcuff instead of a stepping stone, but we are not bound to it. It may be the history of our actions stamped and frozen in time, but we don't have to live as if it will repeat itself. History repeats itself only when we keep looking back at our past and writing it that way. So instead, look forward and write what you see fit. Fear nothing, fear no one. Believe in yourself, in your dreams, your passions, and trust the process of life as I have. When you give yourself to that process, you will realize there is nothing to be afraid of. So if anything shall rise against you, you will have the strength to look it dead in the eye and say, "Hello, fear. Welcome to your end."
So it's not scary.
Come on, go swim.
No.
You did that. You did that.
Are you going to swim?
Yeah, he won. Really, he won from speed.
Oh no.
Where did he get a speedo from?
He took his clothes off. You're drunk, man.
So we didn't even get home until like 6 or 7 a.m. And we actually were leaving that morning and had to be checked out by 12. So I'm tired as a dog, man. It's like 12 right now. I have bloodshot eyes. Like, I don't even know what's going on with my life. Struggling trying to put stuff in my bag. I, smell like seaweed. I'm tired, man. I'm super tired. And Yulia had actually called me a couple times, and I had missed the call because she was coming down on the last day to see us, before we left. So I was like freaking out about that. But, everything was cool. We ended up meeting up.
Now we're here with Yulia.
I tried some cheese coffee thing.
Drink first. Then eat the cheese. It's good cheese. Is there cheese in the coffee? The coffee's made of cheese. It's not milk or anything. It's milk. Cheese.
It tasted like coffee, but it tasted like weird. I'll say that. So then Yulia, Lorenzo, and myself had one last meal before we left at, I believe it was called Stronghouse.
Să zicem și scrierea pe mine, dar mi-a сообщение.
Нет, там только крем.
So you go back to work tomorrow?
Yes.
Where do you work?
Graphic designer.
Graphic? Oh.
Yes. American company.
What is going on?
And and we just talked and chatted up, and it was a really chill time. Other than the random drunk guy who walked up to us and started yelling obscenities in Ukrainian or Russian because we didn't take a picture of him.
Мужчина, сядьте на место, пожалуйста.
Блять, я вообще нахуй с тобой не разговариваю, блять. Какого хера ты лезешь, если я с мужиками говорю сейчас?
Еще раз повторяю. Сядьте на свое место дислокации.
So there was that. So you can imagine it was definitely hard to say bye.
Julia's ordering a taxi. She has to go back to the autobus to go back to Nikolaev, and we have to go to the airport in like 3 hours to go back to Bucharest to go back to San Diego.
You know, every story has, I'm not gonna say an end. I mean, every story does have an end, but every story has its chapters, and this is the end of one and the beginning of another.
I think we're just gonna end it here.
Getting all mad at me and stuff.
Ready for?
It's not a Speedo already. He took his clothes off and he had boxers on. It's not a Speedo underneath his clothes.
No, that's not boxing. That's a Speedo.
That's not a Speedo. It's boxer briefs. Clown.
The dumb clown.